All right, folks, you're welcome back. And if you just joined us, this is the final stretch of the show. Now, before the break, I told you that I have a very special guest that's going to blow your mind. Now, this special guest is not just for the women out there, it's also for the men. And we're talking so many interesting things. So before I unveil who my guest is, let me share with you her bio. Her name is Bola Mata Okoh. She's an award-winning attorney and executive leader who's recognized as the super achiever Peak Performing Woman of the Year 2023, and also has been listed among the leading ladies in Africa for Africa's 100 Most Inspiring Women and ABCD's Africa's 100 Most Impactful Voices in 2024. Also, in 2022, she founded the BMO Advisory Services that focuses on women empowerment, and also certified as an executive coach by Gemstone Leadership Institute, and also she leads Women's Lifestyle Hub, amongst other things. Okay. Good morning, ma'am, and good to have you in the studio.
Good morning, good morning. So excited to be here on this rainy day.
Yes.
The rain did not stop me.
And I'm glad you could make it, because all through Lagos, floods everywhere.
I know. I went out to drive myself.
You did?
I did.
Wow,
yes.
That's inspiring. I mean, hope you're taking notes out there.
Yes.
Okay, so this morning we're talking about empowering women, coaching, leadership, and strategic relationships in today's world. And you've been recognized for so many things. But before we even delve into some of the questions, I'd like for you to just, give me an insight on how this all began for you.
Okay, so I know you read my bio, but I have a unique way that I love to introduce myself, which really encapsulates everything that I do. So I say I'm a pastor by calling. Yes, okay. I am a pastor by calling. I'm a lawyer by training. I did study law. I've been admitted to the bar, both here in the United States. I'm a banker by default. I sit on the board of Wema Bank as a non-executive director. I say that I'm a podcaster by design. Wow. I have a podcast. It's called the Excellent Life Podcast. And I really came up with that podcast round about COVID to inspire, motivate, and challenge people to live their best life. And I am an executive coach. And I'm proud to say that I got my executive coaching certification at the good old age of 53.
Wow. Well, that is a lot.
Yes, yes.
Well, so, I mean, I'm glad to have you. Definitely, I'm honored to be in your presence. There's so much to learn. No, there is so much to learn.
Okay.
And I'm glad that that's why I mentioned at the start of the show, it's not just for women. So,
yes,
the gentlemen out there
watching,
there's so much to learn. But let's talk about, how all that you've achieved, all you've put together, the Lifestyle Hub has contributed to empowerment of executive women, and how also you can share some of your success stories with the women out there watching the show right now.
Okay, so that's a lot. A few years back, like I said, I became an executive coach. But before then, I found myself as a woman in executive management. And at the time I got on the board of the bank, of course, it was a very gender skewed industry. There were more men than women. And I noticed that there were peculiar challenges that I faced being a woman. And so when I became an executive coach, I was very, very driven to be able to cater to women that would be going through the same thing I went through, and be able to provide, the support system, the knowledge that they need to be able to weave through that male-skewed industry. So that's how I came up with Women's Lifestyle Hub, which I describe as a community of executive women, vibrant community of executive women committed to living their very best life and committed to personal and professional excellence. Because I honestly am someone that is driven to be excellent in all I do, because I believe that that is the DNA that we have as children of God.
Fantastic. I love it. Okay, so let's talk about some of the biggest challenges facing women in leadership today, and how also they can overcome such obstacles.
So, like I said, when I got into executive management, there weren't a lot of women, and I think there's a number of reasons why that's the case. Number one, I feel that a lot of women, because we are primarily the caregivers, we are the ones that build a home. A lot of women they cannot chase their ambition or their dreams the same way that a man can. So that's one limiting factor. And then when we actually make the effort to do so, there really is not the space on the table for us. Someone said to me the other day that jobs should not be gender specific, they should be competence specific.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that's not the reality of the world that we live in. In any given situation, there seem to be more opportunities for men than women. And the other thing is that as a woman, we feel like we have to prove ourselves. You know, we have to work twice as hard as a man for the same position. I was reading an article the other day that really shocked me. They said that if a man wanted to apply for a job and there was a list of requirements and it fit like 6 out of 10, it would be like, oh, I can do it. But for a woman, we check off 9 and we're still like, oh, can I do it?
There's still question marks.
There's still the question marks because we understand the pressure that we have to overperform compared to our male counterpart. So these are all the things that, prevent women from being more prominent or more present in the executive space. And also, I find that, as women, like I said, we constantly have to prove ourselves, and we don't have the support systems that we truly need to succeed.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned support systems, because now I want to talk about core leadership skills that you think that women need. So if you were to highlight maybe 4 or 5 of them, what would those core leadership skills that you think women should need, what would they be? Number
1, authenticity. Every single day I go with authenticity because, like I said, because of the pressure we face, we feel like we have to be somebody else. A lot of women they are not comfortable in their skin because they feel like if I'm myself, then maybe they will not see me as fit enough for that position. So authenticity is very important. In fact, a study done by Harvard said that that was the most single important characteristic of great leaders. So authenticity. Integrity is key. We live in a society that people say things and then they back down, or they don't really follow up with what they say. So I believe that as a leader, you must be a person of integrity. Number 3 is excellence. I already spoke about how I am driven to be excellent. I feel like excellence is about giving your very best in every situation that you find yourself in. And then, of course, I would say loyalty. Loyalty, because loyalty for me is one of the values that drive me. Being loyal to my beliefs, to the things I stand for, because I say that if you do not stand for anything, you will fall for anything. So loyalty is very important. So, and I think that empathy, as a leader, empathy is also very important, because the ability to be able to feel and to empathize with people is also what stands you out in leadership. Yeah, so 5. So I've given you 5.
That's 5. Okay. So I want to talk about, you're a certified coach.
Okay.
And I want to talk about some of the approaches that you take. You know how therapists, like this is a therapy session. You're here, I'm here. So let's talk about the methodologies that you employ in coaching, and mentoring and unlocking potentials of people.
So for me, I do, so when I got into, before I became an executive coach, I had a coach. And the method he employed was what we called a blend of coaching and mentoring, which is really what I do too, because what that does is that, so when you speak about mentoring, most times when you're mentoring someone, there are people that are trying to chart the path that you have already walked. So there's a lot of experience that you bring to bear in the mentoring relationship. Okay. So for me, a lot of women that I coach, they are executives who are also, like I said, going through the ranks that I've gone through maybe 10, 15 years ago. So that is really, the technique I use. So, because coaching is really about helping people discover what is already inside of them. Okay. So many people, when they come to you for coaching, it's really, what they're looking for is clarity. Okay. So there's a lot of things dancing around in their mind, and they're not sure what they need to do. So as a coach, you are really helping them to clarify the path they want to take. Okay. But where the bonus of mentoring comes in is that you are now doing it from a place of experience. So once they're going through that process of trying to clarify what they want to do, you can now step in and say, you know what, I've been in this position, I kind of worked it this way. Do you think that's, so, kind of a holding hand. And I find that that is something that a lot of people are very, very comfortable with. Just being able to listen to that voice of experience that says, I've been there, I've done that, and this worked for me.
All right. I want to segue a little bit away from leadership and talk about you.
I love that word.
I want to talk about your personal life
Okay.
and career and other things related.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the pivotal moments. Can you share with us some of the pivotal moments that shaped your own journey, personal
Okay.
journeys as an attorney and an executive leader?
So, as an attorney, the funny thing, I was telling this story last week Friday. Growing up, I didn't think I would be a lawyer. I wanted to be a doctor. I just liked the sound of, I want to be a gynecologist and obstetrician, But then along the way, I started to read some books. I watched legal dramas, and I was really fascinated with the law. I was fascinated with the idea of justice, of equality, of championing people's rights. So that's really what led me into law. I'm someone that I don't like people being treated unfairly. I don't like people being cheated. So I don't like people being taken advantage of. So that's really what, drove my passion to be a lawyer. And then as far as executive coaching, I kind of think that is divine providence, because a few years back, a friend of mine called me and she was like, I want to gift you a masterclass, and it turned out that would be the beginning of my journey towards being an executive coach. Because for the first time in my life, I understood that I didn't really, I've been a pastor, but I wasn't really familiar with the concept of coaching. And then, having someone coach me and being able to see the benefit, the clarity brought to my life, it really inspired me to want to do the same for other people, which is why I found myself, becoming an executive coach.
Fantastic. Now I want to talk about your podcast. It's called the Excellent Life Podcast.
The Excellent Life Podcast.
Okay, so what are some of the themes, the conversations that you have, and also what are some of the lessons that you think people might have learned from some of the series that you put out there?
So like I said, the podcast was something that came to me in the midst of COVID. There was so many negative things happening. And, I was used to going back and forth. And then, of course, everybody was grounded. And I kept saying to my husband, oh, my God, I wish there was a way that I could, just be a positive voice to people out there. And I'd always thought I wanted to do a podcast. So I decided to start the podcast. And when I have this intro, every episode I say, this podcast, I hope it will inspire, motivate, and challenge you. And some of the topics I talk about, living your best life, living a maximized life, living your very best life, excellence in service, because it's really about helping. It's a very positive and upbeat podcast. It's, I've heard people say to me many times, I listened to an episode and I felt so inspired, because there's so much negative,
so much in the news that's really sad.
Yes, going on in the world. So people don't want you to knock them over and over again. So for me, it's creating an opportunity for people to be inspired, to understand that, okay, I might be going through what I'm going through now, but there's something else, something better that can happen if I am committed to the process. I say all the time that there is no experience in life that is, wasted, because even the podcast itself came from what people might have called a negative experience, COVID. If I had not been grounded during COVID, I don't know, would I ever have pivoted to do a podcast?
Yeah.
Not sure. But so every, my coach always says to me that pain has purpose. And that when you find the purpose of pain, you will stop feeling pain. And I say that to people a lot, that if you're going through a painful experience, you're going through a negative experience, I say to my children, what can you learn from it? Because the worst thing is to go through a painful experience, go through a negative experience, and not learn anything out of it. Because every experience is an opportunity to learn and to grow.
All right. Wow. I wish we had so much more time, because this is like, we need to unbundle and unpack so many things. But I think my final question for you would have to be goals and future projects, and particularly concerning women. How do you envision the role of women in leadership evolving over the next decade?
So for me, my goal for the future is it's centered around impact and legacy.
Okay.
Last year my mom passed. She was really a very motivating factor in my life. And I think one of the things that gave me great comfort was having people speak about her life and how she was able to impact them. And so when I think of whether it's women's lifestyle or whether I'm thinking of podcasts, executive coaching, my driving force is, how can I create impact? How can I create a legacy? And I think that as far as women are concerned, there's a lot more consciousness about inclusion. You know, where I think a lot of companies are being a bit more intentional about, including women in the leadership roles. When I got on the board, there were very few women, but now I think the women have, there's more of a gender balance. So I think we need to continue to have the conversation. And I always also say to women that as we have this conversation about inclusion, we also must be willing to be competent in these roles. Because I'm not one of those people that just advocate that women should be in a position because they're a woman.
Yeah.
I believe that you must have the competence to be able to sit at the table. And I was saying to a leadership group I was talking to on Saturday that preparation plus opportunity equals success. So you have to be prepared for that opportunity, because if you are not prepared and the opportunity comes along, then you really don't have anybody to blame but yourself. And so that is my role as an executive coach, to make sure that as many women are prepared for that opportunity when they will get a seat on the table.
Fantastic. So women, I hope you've paid close attention to all of this. And I know they've been inspired, but personally for you, what are your upcoming plans and goals, towards your career? Are we looking to see more podcast series? What do you have in store?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact, I have a podcast assistant, and she's told me I'm behind. I need to get a podcast out. So, podcast for me is it's about using my voice. I know that last year, I think, it was this year I got that award, and that for me is an opportunity to use my voice. Because it's amazing that at times I'm looking at where people are listening to the podcast. People are listening in India, in Australia. So there's really no limit to where your voice can go through in that regard. So absolutely, as far as my executive community, I'm looking to grow the community. I'm looking to, and for opportunities also to give back.
Yeah.
In areas of mentoring, I have a lot of young people that I mentor, because I think, social media has kind of distorted our values these days. So for me, I love every opportunity to be able to say to people that you don't necessarily have to feel that you have to conform to the pressure of social media. You can be very comfortable in your own skin. And really, like I said, I am so focused on legacy and impact.
All right. Thank you so much for stopping by. And we definitely need to bring you back for a part 2 of this. Thank you for coming to the studios today.
I will be more than grateful to come back.
All right.
Yeah.
That's our show, ladies and gents. Before we leave, though, we have to leave you with our word for the day, which is going to be displayed on your screen right about now. Our word for the day says, leadership is not about being in charge. It's about taking charge of those in your charge. And this is from Simon Sinek. That said, you can find this show on social media, particularly on YouTube. You can watch a rerun as well later tonight, and also follow us on our various platforms and use all the various hashtags: no to jungle justice, no to election violence, and so much more. Don't forget to be kind to other people, drive safely. There's a major storm out there, and I will see you in the next show tomorrow, so please stay with us. From us here in the studio, it's goodbye.